manage to even? How was that even allowed? Like, I found that really fascinating. 'Cause you know, like, what were some of the other words that you can?
Yeah, so samba is from the Kimbundu language, and it means pray. It means it's a preach. We have like literally sentences and structures translated from Kimbundu to Portuguese. So for example, one of the classic ones is the ng sound. So that is this word for church. The word for church in Portuguese is igreja, but you see people saying what? Igreja. And it's because
Ele tá solto.
eu tô soltinho, yeah.
And we'll
Oh
just,
my God.
Calma.
I am very calm.
Calma, calabresa.
Just not used.
E aí, beleza, bem-vindo. What's up, what's good? And welcome back to the Brazilian podcast with me, your host, Stephen, reporting live from Salvador Bahia, Brazil. And today we have a very special guest, capoeirista, candomble-ista, and today he is ready to be solta na pista. Very good friend of mine. He has not only opened up his own online English school, English Bhata, which is known all over Brazil as well as worldwide, but he's also a very good friend of mine who I consider also a brother, and I'm here to welcome Wale Kumbi. What's going on, my guy?
I like your candomble-ista and pista joke.
Yes.
That was a good one.
Oh, you know.
I'm happy to be here with you, man. It's a joy to be here with you all, and I hope we have a good chat.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about this one, to be honest. Like I said, you have your own English course, which I think is probably the most interesting English course that I've ever seen.
Thank you. That's quite a compliment, to be honest.
Your English course, your English classes is the first time I've seen English being taught from I would say the heartbeat, but also the perspective of learning about the African diaspora.
Yes.
And it's crazy that it's so cool. But it's like you're learning English if you're not a native, for whatever reason you're learning English. So it's great that you get to pick up some vocabulary, learn, speaking, all of that stuff, learning. But here I am, a native English speaker, making sure I go to those classes because I'm learning about Africa.
Yes.
It's crazy.
So I think those kinds of things makes all the difference when you're learning something, because you create bonds emotionally, you create memories, and that's really helps to solidify knowledge, But yeah.
Yeah. And that's really smart, and it makes sense because with your English, again, your English course, you're teaching it to a predominantly black clientele, black students.
Yeah, black students mostly, yeah.
Yeah, so they all kind of have that. I mean, anyone could have that interest in learning about Africa and learning about the diaspora.
A lot of white people do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's quite interesting.
Yes.
Brazil is interesting too for our subscribers.
Yeah.
Or people who are listening to us talk now. But so you teaching about Africa at the same time you're teaching English. Mm-hmm. If I said it the other way around, it would make more sense to the point I'm trying to make, is that you're teaching English, but you're also teaching about Africa.
Yes.
What's more important, the teaching English for you or the teaching about the diaspora?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
To me, 100% about the diaspora, man. I only teach English because currently is the only language besides Portuguese that I know. Like, I really can express myself in a very fluid way. But I actually learned other two languages. Kimbundu, it's a language from Angola, which is very important to us. In Brazil especially, but in Salvador, strongly, I can say. And Yoruba, which is very specific to the region of the cultural region that I'm in, Salvador and the Recôncavo region. Yoruba people were here in massive numbers.
Yeah.
So their influence on the language, like the Baiano dialect, it's more expressive here, specifically because of that.
Yeah.
And the Kimbundo language impacted Brazil, the language, the Portuguese that we speak here, in a more broader term. But Yoruba is a thing of Bahia, almost, we can say. So those two languages are the language that I consider myself to be part of my ancestry. So if it was for me, I would be teaching those,
Yeah.
not English per se. English, to be honest to you, when I founded Kuvata, English was just an excuse, man.
You were just
I was just trying to talk about Africa.
Yeah.
So people actually got the bait.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, they took the bait.
They say, hey,
I took
listen,
the bait.
I need to learn English. So why not we'll try with this guy who's saying who can teach us English based on African culture, and they are in, they say, God damn, it's good, you know?
Jeez, they said, whoa, this guy is
Yes.
militant.
It also
But
not,
in a good way.
Yeah.
But not even too militant. I remember we met through capoeira.
right.
Yeah. And you were telling me about your English course.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, I'll give it a look. I teach English, okay? So it's not me coming from I already speak English, I know everything point of view. But you said to me, come so you can learn with us or something like
Yes.
that. You said something like, come to learn.
Yes.
I'm like, I
teach English.
English.
I speak
I'm
English since
yeah,
I was
what possibly am I gonna learn here?
Yeah,
You know?
yes.
I remember thinking that, but you're a lovely guy in that. We like just met, so we weren't like as close as we are now. So I was like, he didn't mean it in the way, his
Yeah.
English, maybe he's meant it, but he didn't mean
Yeah.
to say like that. Maybe he wants me to teach.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go there, see what the class is like, and then I'm gonna teach.
Yes.
I went there, COMMUNIDADE, the first lesson, we're watching the museum scene from Black Panther. You know, when the guy's like looking at the artifacts and the woman's explaining, and then, I can't remember, she gets like poisoned or some shit. And then they just rob the rest of the museum, and puts the mask on, all that stuff.
That scene is brilliant.
That scene's amazing. That's a lot of people's favorite scene. You know,
Yes.
they talk about an intro into Black Panther. That's like perfect. That was my intro into your English course, and I was just like, yo.
Yeah, you were lucky. Some people get an intro in my classes watching the slave ship scene from American
Jeez.
Gods.
Yeah.
That's a heavy one. That's
Nah,
that's another
I
brilliant.
got
That's a
locked out,
brilliant.
jeez.
That's a brilliant one.
Yeah, but it wasn't okay. Cool, we get to watch films here. I love films. I love Disney. I love superheroes, whatever, Marvel. But I was like, we then started learning about the different artifacts, pieces of art, whatever, that were taken from Africa to Europe and places like that. In the first lesson, all in English, but learning about that. So even though I was like, what's this guy inviting me, a native English teacher, to his English class and giving and saying words like, and then you can learn them.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna learn here?
Yeah.
And then end up being like, yo, like
Let me
I can't wait to tell people this and pretend that I just know this stuff, you know. And that's literally what it was. Like, it was so worth it. Like, I say this a lot. Said it to people in life. And this is why I kind of wanted to have you on. I'm not the only native there. I'm not the only gringo non-Brazilian there.
Yeah.
There's people from Angola, like you mentioned, just people from the United States. I'm talking about in terms of where they live and stuff like that, their
Shout
culture.
out to Asmite and
Asmite.
my boy Femi.
Yeah, see? And, like, they're probably like me,
Yeah.
where we're just like, yo, okay, hold on, let me learn about some things, you know?
Yeah. I would say most of the continental Africans or diaspora that got connected to the class, it gets connected somewhat like this. So I have this friend through 5, he's from Atlanta, and I know him for quite a while, but we never bonded. And he came to Salvador for like the 4th time, and he said, "Hey, listen, I'm here in Salvador. Can you be my company for around. He wanted to buy like a cell phone chip, like a SIM card. So I went there to help him, and we bonded right away. And we start talking, and he actually went to do a presentation to my school, and he said, "Man, that's good. That's great. Even like, I feel like people get recognition. We study English, studying ourselves, so we talk about ourselves there. So I remember Five came to this blues class. So I do these open classes about subjects, so I can talk to people outside Covata who are interested in our work but doesn't have like financial means to be, or doesn't have time. So we did that a blues class, a class about the blues, the music style, the blues. And I remember Fife was there, and I was talking about, black people from the US in general. And he was like, "Man, how do you know this stuff?" And say, "Oh man, this is great. Oh man, you're teaching people like this. Yo, this is nice." So yeah, shout out to my boy Five too. I miss you, man. And it is quite nice to see like people from Nigeria, people from Jamaica. When they see my class, they connect with it somehow. So this points me to the right track.
Yeah, I mean, it does, and it's great because, like I was saying, you have a very good way about you in terms of sort of bringing people on a journey with you.
Yeah, because that's my personal journey, to be honest. I'm sharing with people who pays me for it, basically.
When you put it like that, you're sounding so profound. But
it's true, man. It's true.
Well, you don't do it for the money or anything like that.
No, I don't do it for them. It's
nothing to do with that.
It's not for the money. We have plenty of students who study for free, actually. It is not about the money, but the money is important so I can eat.
Yeah, we all need to survive.
Yes.
And eat and whatnot. But I mean, you took it there. I wasn't actually going to go into this. I didn't really want to go into this. Not that it's like some super exclusive or anything like that, but like this wasn't your first job in life, was it? Do you know what I mean?
Nah.
This was things changed.
Yes.
In your life that turned you into this. The Brazilian Dr. Umar Johnson. I don't know if you take that one.
I have no idea what you're saying. But what happened? Okay, what happened? I like to study.
Yeah.
I like to learn things, basically. I love learning. I try to learn everything new every single day. And that's not like something that I put as a goal. It just happens naturally.
Yeah.
I love to learn and I love to share. And actually, teaching was my first job. When I was going to college, I started to work as a teacher in what we call reforço escolar. So it's like a place where kids can go after school to do homework, to get help to do homework, to
like a homework club or something.
Yes, something like that.
Okay.
So I was 18 and I started there, and I remember vividly, I didn't have anything like related to teaching classes or anything, but I looked at my teachers at college and say, "Man, that's not that's not the best that you can do, right? That's not."
Wow, you said that.
Yeah, I remember vividly saying, "Man, I could do better." I say, maybe if I feel like I could do better, let me try to do something about it.
Yeah.
So my first classes were about math, chemistry, and physics.
Yeah.
Because I actually graduated in chemical engineering at UFBA. So when I started working as a math teacher, as a science teacher, I actually wasn't like Afrocentric or anything. So I started teaching at 18, and my Afrocentricness started to flourish in me when I was like 26, 27, 26 for sure. So in this like almost 10 years gap, I just teach. And I used to teach mostly white kids because I used to teach in a very good school. So basically only white students. But then when the pandemic hit, I was on my African deep dive. You can say something like that.
Yeah.
So I started to teach English. So the pandemic hits, and well, the president that we have at the time said they're going to hold the national university exam. And because of the pandemic, the public schools closed and the private schools kept going online.
Yeah. What's the national university
NM.
exam?
NA.
To like concurso?
No, it's not like concurso. It's the national high school exam. So to be able to enter schools, like to be able to enter colleges, universities, you have to apply to this kind of exam. So you pay a fee, and then you do like a big recap exam about everything from high school, basically.
And that gets you into a good public school.
Yes. If you have a good grade, you can enter in a good college. So the best colleges are the public ones, the federal universities, the state universities and everything. But the public high schools, they are very bad, usually, most of the time. So what I did was I would do my share to help my people, because black people usually studies at public schools, majority. So I studied at a private school most of my early time. I was only the only black person of my group of friends for most of it. I knew another black people who were on the same group, but I never got close to them. But for the longest time, I was the only black person in a group of friends inside Salvador, which is the most black city.
Yo, how did you manage that?
It's because I studied at a middle class, upper class college. Not college, high school.
Yeah.
So when I started teaching black students from public schools, my project was actually absorbed by another project, which is the Bessa Quilombo Bessa, which is an online preparatory school for the exam, for the NA.
Yeah.
So they got my students inside there. They enrolled my students, and I teach physics there for like 2 years for free for black people around Brazil, and we are very happy to have good results.
Well done.
Yeah. You can link the page. They're sick. Yeah. They're awesome. That Anderson, shout out to Anderson. Anderson is amazing. Anderson is oh my god. Yeah.
I'm trying to check these guys out. But continue.
So, but I wanted to do something with English. I knew that English have some particularities that could be tied to culture, because every time you teach a language, you teach a culture. And I was on my African deep dive. I was, surfing that wave of Africanness that was rising up in the 2020, 2021. And, I am a very hyper-focused kind of guy. So when I like something, I go at it. That's how capoeira got. So capoeira got me here.
Yeah.
My first conscious touch of Africanness in Salvador was capoeira. So capoeira got me here. So I started to teach my friends for free English.
English, okay.
I started to teach English to my friends for free. So I say, listen, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in a black African way. And I started to produce my own material to teach. And I started to teach my friends for free because it was the pandemic. Nobody was leaving home. So everybody was home. Everybody was watching lives and everything. So I say, hey, you want to learn English? I say, yeah, let's do it. Okay. So I had like 8 to 10 students for free. We're just meeting twice a week. And like 2 months in, they say, a good friend of mine, Sazana, comes and say, so your stuff is very good. You need to monetize it. And I was almost concluding my majoring in engineer, and it was basically agreed between me in the group that was doing my final project that I
Yeah.
would go directly to master's degree. And I said, that's an interesting story. And when I did, I realized that's what I want to do the rest of my life.
Jeez.
I say, man, this is great to know.
So
The-
you didn't finish college? You didn't.
I did.
You did.
I
okay.
finished,
You
but I had,
didn't do the masters.
but I didn't do the masters. I dropped the masters for the Bhata.
Yeah.
So it was a secure path, to be honest, because my
What were your folks thinking at the time?
my pops and my mom.
Yeah.
Well, my dad is like,
Because
well,
chemical engineering, do you know what I mean? Like that's pretty
Yeah,
intense course.
yeah,
You know, it's
yeah. My dad said,
expecting you to
my dad basically
make some
said,
good money for the family.
yeah, but my dad, so that's a good one because fortunately, my dad and my mom doesn't need any kind of help from me. They have money. So to be
Okay.
honest, yeah, I am a middle class man. So
Well, yeah, we
I am
noticed that from your story about
Yes.
not hanging out with the rest of the black kids in the
yeah,
class.
I'm a middle class
And now
man.
look at you.
I always was. So my dad basically said, "Hey, listen, you're a man. You know what you're doing." My dad said, "I'm not going to deal with it."
Yeah.
And my mom was a little bit more difficult to talk through, but she understood. Actually, the hardest person to talk to was one of my aunts. She was my god aunt.
Yeah. She's your
Godmother,
basically.
godmother,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And she actually is a chemical intellectual that works in a very big federal university, and
Right.
it felt like I was following her path.
Yeah.
So I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
am not." And she called me like 3-4 times trying to talk me back on it and say, "No, I want to teach, but I don't want to teach engineering. I want to teach Africa in many ways possible, you know?"
Yeah.
So now I teach English, but later I want to teach Kimbundu, Yoruba, Kikongo, Fon. I don't know. I still have
Yeah.
plenty of life. Who knows what I'm going to be, you know?
Do it all, man.
Huh?
Do it all. You can do it all.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing, man?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm great.
Good.
I'm excellent, right?
Good. So it's so interesting, like just hearing about some of this stuff. Some of the stuff that I knew. Some stuff I was like, okay, that's interesting. The fact that you found your calling in the midst of being around the more diverse circles. Obviously, you wanted to help the black people that
Yeah.
were around you, but you didn't have that connection before. What were you like growing up in terms of your
So,
mingling, your interactions with other black people?
so my family, sadly, when I say my family, I only refer to my mother's side of the family. Not that I don't like my dad or anything like that. I love my dad, and he loves me back. It's because he fought the entire family.
Fought the entire family.
Yeah, he has grudges against every single one of his brothers and sisters and siblings. It's a mess, man.
Oh, his family.
His family,
Okay,
yeah, which is my family too, right?
Yeah. No,
But-
I thought you meant he fought your mother's
Nah,
family.
he's
Which
cool.
kind of makes sense. That's kind of,
He is.
you know.
He has better relationship with my mother's family, with his family.
And his own family.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't grew up. So why did I say this? It's because my mom. So listen, when you talk about race in Brazil, you have to say about miscegenation, and my mother's family is actually what would you call a pardos family. So you have people who are white, you have people who are black, you have people who are in the middle. It's a mess. Like racially, it's a mess.
It's a mess. Beautiful.
It's a mess. My grandma from my mother's side was a white girl, and my dad was a mixed man. Oh, my grandfather
Father.
was a mixed man. So my mom is a mixed woman, but my dad is black.
Right.
So he's lighter than me, but he's 100% black.
Yeah.
And his family is all black. So I could say that my mother's side didn't have the experience, although they lived in the periphery, in the suburban area of Salvador, which is a periphery. Well, they were Catholics and Protestants. They didn't have like many of those African things conserved inside the family. But my dad's side, you wanna say something?
No, no.
But my dad's side, my dad's side had. But as I didn't grow up with my dad's family, I didn't get in touch with that. So I went to this white school. I had white friends. I attend white places, you can say, you know, like, oh, let's meet with the friends. Where we're going? We're going to the fanciest mall in Salvador. You know, we're going to,
Salvador shopping.
Yeah,
that's pretty fancy.
You know, which is
to maybe Baja.
Bad to think about it. You know, I never grew up listening to pagode or anything like that. I was a metalhead. You know, so I was a metalhead in Salvador.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, metal. I don't know about metal, but I know that rock and roll it's come out recently. I'm sure it was known before, but it's come out recently that rock and roll was originally black music anyway.
Oh yes, sure.
So I'm sure metal probably had its place in the black.
Yeah. So that's an interesting topic, because when you talk about rock and metal, the black figures are way back there, because basically after Elvis, it was a landslide of white people.
Yeah.
So I recall, I was telling this to my wife these days, that I recall one band of black people when I was a metalhead, which was Living Color. I love Living Color, and even Living Color, I only know like 2 songs. But I love that songs, you know, and it didn't even cross my mind at the time, like racial things. I knew what was a palmiteiro, for example, but my racial reading, it was like non-existent, basically.
What's a palmiteiro for those?
A palmiteiro. So a palmiteiro is a black person who dates white people. You know,
palmiteiro.
In some black circles of Salvador and Brazil in general, that's a persona non grata. You know,
it's frowned upon.
Yeah. People don't like it.
Non grata.
Persona non grata.
Persona non grata.
Yes.
Okay, so it's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon. People don't take palmiteiros lightly.
Yeah.
Of course, in some Afrocentric circles of existence, some black people doesn't even care about it.
Some black people don't even care. Some people see people as people.
Yeah.
Some people.
I see people as true. I see people as people too. It wasn't us that called us black, you know. You know.
Yeah. What was I researching before we decided to record today? What did I tell you I was researching? Since you're gonna put me on blast.
Oh, you're researching like Ijaw words.
So just to give context.
Yeah.
I'm Nigerian.
Yes.
In England, we don't say we're English. In Brazil, we'll say we're English because we're from England. Unfortunately, if I say I'm Nigerian here, they start asking me, they as in you, as in people, will say, well, you know, what part? And then you say, and they'll say, okay, yeah, like, how was school there and stuff? And you're like, no.
I grew up in England.
I grew up in England. I was born in England, but I am a Nigerian.
Yes.
They're not used to the idea, or you're not used to the idea that if you come from a place that's just so heavily diverse, it's normal to talk about where your parents are from in terms of where you're from. We don't say where we're born. You're not going to say that in a pub or in school. There's plenty of English people, but when I was growing up, all the white people were Irish. I think I knew like three English people, and one of them, their mum was Irish, so that's like 2.5. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I know English people now, but I mean, like, I went to a Roman Catholic school.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know.
It
were English. Yeah. Irish.
It was a different existence inside England, right? It's not that typical English that you expect.
No. I mean, most people don't know how diverse it is if they haven't been there.
Yes.
Or if they, if they're watching media and they're seeing things like, I don't know, Downton Abbey or whatever. But you know what I mean?
If people like know the current country of England, just like watching. How is the name of the King? How the name of that movie? The guys
The King.
who are the guys who are
The Crown.
spies. Who are spies?
Oh, the Kingsman.
Kingsman. If you watch Kingsman,
I've not seen that.
Yeah, if you
Is that
if
good?
you, the first one is.
I'll give that a go, but
Yeah, if you know England.
that's where you're getting your reference from.
Yes, exactly.
Watch Top Boy, man.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Watch Top Boy.
No, it's so. Listen, what I'm trying to say is, if someone has the stereotypical vision of England, like from the movie, things like the movie
Yeah.
Kingsman,
Yeah.
they will not.
Notting Hill.
Yeah, they will not understand like Southside London
Yeah.
is basically Africa, right?
Yeah, Brixton.
Brixton is
Yeah,
basically
South
Africa.
London,
You
or,
have like
Peckham.
you can walk
Yeah.
the streets. I never did that, but I heard about it so many times, and I see videos so many times. Like you have streets and alleys with people speaking Yoruba on the streets,
Yeah.
right?
And other languages. But
And other
yeah.
languages.
But that was to lead to my point, because I don't speak my language, and I have a lot of vergonya because of that. That is quite
Yes.
shameful. But going back to being in Salvador, I always say this quick segue, another segue. In Rio, people ask you where you're from. You say England. Eles puxa saco. They're nicer to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Salvador, people ask you where you're from. You say England.
Get out of here, you gringo.
They don't really want to be your best friend.
Yes.
Whoa, I just said I was European. You don't want to be my best friend?
Yeah.
You only like Americans?
People here don't trust. Well,
Well, if you say Nigerian,
yeah.
wow!
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh!
yeah.
And then what comes next? Oh, I speak Yoruba. Yeah.
So that's another thing.
I'm not Yoruba.
Yeah.
Oh. And then I'm back to being an English gringo again, who
Yes.
they're not interested in
Yeah,
talking to.
exactly.
So that's why going back to not speaking my language thing is like, it's not. I've never needed to, because they don't want to hear it in Brazil, and I live here, so it's just like, what's the point? Otherwise, I will. But you speak to me in Igbo and Ijo, which we have similar greetings and stuff. So when we compliment each other,
Yes.
I can reply to stuff like that. And growing up in a Nigerian household, you pick up plenty of things, but my parents didn't really. They weren't really like hardcore with you have to speak, our language. And I didn't really have a problem with that. But yeah, now I have a little bit of vergonya that I can't, because I've met someone who can, and I'm like, fucking hell, how can he speak better Nigerian than me?
No,
What
I
the
don't
hell is
speak.
going on?
So disclaimer: I don't speak Igbo. Don't do this.
No,
to
and
me.
I don't either. That's the point. That's the point.
I don't speak Igbo. I have an Igbo friend, Emerson.
Yeah.
Shout out to Emerson too. I have an Igbo friend.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm a very curious guy, so I just ask random words from him, and he would give me some explaining and everything. So I know just how to say like "How are you?" is Kedu, and "Thank you" it's Odima.
Odima.
Yeah, I just say that. That's not proper knowledge of.
That's
the
not
language.
fair. You can't test me now, because I'm only going to repeat what you just said. At least let me do the reply.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
like
My bad.
1-1. Anyway. So if we talk about language, if we talk about culture, things that were like rock music. Rock
Yes.
music was originally black music, and then it got sort of like whitewashed. It got turned into this thing that was only for white people and stuff like that. Happens with a lot of different things in culture.
Yes.
First time we met, you were telling me about your English course.
Yeah.
You were telling me about Bhata. You said to me, did you know that Samba's the only one I remember off the top of my head?
Yes.
Samba's actually a word from, I think it was Angola.
Yes.
It's not from Brazil. And before that, I mean, like, okay, that makes sense in terms of the way it sounds and the fact that it's a music rooted in African tradition and African sort of rhythm. but it made me think. And there were more words that you were giving me, and it's like you almost automatically assume that if a word or something inside Brazilian culture is popular or exists within the Brazilian culture, it probably came from Portugal. So then when you were telling me that there's actually no, this came from this part of Africa and that word came from here and stuff like that, I was just like, yo, like, first of all, how does he know this? But then, like, seriously? How did they manage to even, how was that even allowed? Like, I found that really fascinating. You know? Like, what were some of the other words that you can...
Yeah, so samba is from the Kimbundu language, and it means pray. It means it's a preach, you know? So it comes from the verb kusamba, which means to pray. And it reflects the way that our ancestors understood praying. It was by celebrating, moving their bodies, and through music, because music is divine in most of sub-Saharan African traditions, you know. But we have plenty of other words, and not even words like Steven, like Brazilian Portuguese, specifically the Portuguese that is spoken in black communities in Brazil. It's very Africanized in the sense that sometimes the phrase itself gets reconstructed. So, for example, if you say that you're hungry in European Portuguese, you'd say eu tenho fome. Literally, I have hunger. But here we don't say that. We say eu estou com fome. Like, I am with hunger. And this I am with is exactly the same way that Kimbundu says I'm hungry. It says emengala nenzala, which means I am with hunger. So we have literally translated sentences from Kimbundu directly from Portuguese. So shout out to my Kimbundu and Yoruba school, the Kalunga idiomas teacher. He's an amazing person. He's a black guy who knows like 14 different languages, and 6 of them are African languages. So the guy is a beast, you know. Wow. He's one of my true inspirations. And everything that I basically know from Kimbundu is from him. So we have like literally sentences and structures translated from Kimbundu to Portuguese. We have like speaking adaptations. So for example, one of the classic ones that you see like in most black communities in Brazil is the nge sound. So that is this word for church. The word for church in Portuguese is igreja, but you see people saying what?
Igreja.
Igreja. Igreja. And it's because in Kimbundu, and if I recall correctly, Kikongo, which is another important language here, the IG sound doesn't exist. Actually, the sound G doesn't exist. Only exists nge. Nge. Not the sound G. The letter G. The letter G. So people who speak Kimbundu doesn't say garage, for example. They would say garage, garage, the ng sound. So when they came here, and you know the colonizers would force them to speak Portuguese and say, "Oh, you have to say igreja, you have to say igreja." So, but the G sound by itself doesn't exist. So what did the ancestors do? They adapted to what they knew it was. So they would say igreja. Igreja, idiota, you know, igual. And for example, words for things that didn't exist in the Portuguese culture. So quiabo, it's okra, right?
Yeah, okra.
Okra, yeah. It's an African vegetable. It doesn't exist outside of Africa, at least not as prominently, for example. So when our ancestors and the colonizers on the slave ship brought us here and brought some crops with them, so they brought yam. They brought some kind of specific kinds of peanuts, for example, some specific kinds of rice, and palm oil, right?
Yeah.
Palm oil, and they brought this weird vegetable that they have no idea how the hell they would name such a thing. And probably someone saw a person from Chokwe background and saw this person say, "Oh, quiabo." I said, oh, that's the word of it, quiabo.
Yeah.
The quiabo, yeah, quiabo now. So quiabo got printed into the Portuguese language of Brazil,
Yeah.
but it's not Portuguese. Quiabo comes from the Chokwe language, right?
Yeah.
Kimbundu would call them Gingumbo. I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me on that. But even the word in English, okra, because the okra is not part of any kind of European tradition. So the same thing happened
Yeah.
in the United States, in
Yeah.
the Caribbean, in the British colonies. They say, "How the hell do you call these?" And probably a Ghanaian guy say okra.
Yeah. Or Nigerian, yeah.
No, it's from Ghana. The word.
Cool. Anyway, that's good for the Brazilian podcast this week. Let's say thank you to Wale.
It is a Ghanaian word, yeah.
Okay.
So okra comes from an African language too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have a lot of those. So the word for weed in
Piss.
weed
Oh,
in
weed.
Portuguese, maconha.
Yeah. Piss.
Piss. It comes from the Kimbundu language too. So we call it maconha, but it comes from the Kimbundu word macanha, which means smokable herbs, you know. And other words that we use also. So for example, the word jamba, that we say jamba here, it actually comes from Kimbundu too. Diamba, which literally means weed in Kimbundu. So we have both words
Yeah.
to refer to the same thing from the same culture
Yeah.
here, preserved crystalline, as the way that they say,
Yeah.
because they are us. So
we should, as a tribute to our ancestors, smoke some jamba.
I'm not going to spoil myself here. I'm
No.
not going to do that. No,
No, not yet.
I have no idea of what you're talking about.
No,
you
I
know?
mean, I don't know. I don't even know what jamba is. It's probably baseado on
Yeah, I
something
only
else.
saw on the TVs and stuff.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're saying. My lawyer is going to get in contact.
Cool. I remember we did one of your Bhata classes.
Yes.
And in that class, I think it was the same one as it was the same episode. It's the same class that we watched the clip from Black Panther.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. And we watched a few other different video clips, interviews of people talking about how they'd like to get back some of the artifacts from Europe. And inside that, there were some Benin bronzes.
Yes.
And I remember you talked about the city of Benin, which blew me away. Just give us a breakdown of like the city of Benin. 'Cause
Okay.
It's so cool. Like,
Okay, so the Benin city was basically the capital and city-state of the Benin Empire. You have this massive city and some smallest villages circling it. So it was what Europeans would call city-state. So it's a city that represents itself as a state, you know. So the city of Benin is from the Edo kingdom or the Bini kingdom, from the Bini people. They are actually like cousins of the Yoruba. If I recall correctly, the founder of the Yoruba people is also founder of the Edo people. They call their king, because they have only one king. The Yoruba had many, so they are centralized people. They call their king Oba, which is a word in Yoruba for king or ruler, I would say, because king is a European conception. So they had this massive city who kind of refused to participate in the slave trade. They were actually low-key fine without it. The city was big enough that the wall and that circulated it, and that the wall would go inside the city too, and like split the cities in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That wall is probably the biggest construction made in the history of mankind. People say that it's the Wall of China, but researchers and research point that actually the wall of the city of Benin was even bigger. Like, it disposed more material to be constructed. It was a earth wall, a wall made of earth and many other structures. And there is a picture of that. There is a picture that's if you put like Benin Kingdom painting, I think this painting is from the Dutch, if I recall correctly, and it depicts a parade. So it's like when Europeans would come, the first contact of Europeans and Africans, as the polite people that we are, we would receive Europeans with open arms. We would,
Yeah.
we would reveal themselves. It would reveal us as not that this mortis thing
No,
that
not
we
a good
could do.
idea.
It is not a good. It wasn't a good idea in most
No.
of the scenarios. So the city was big, the empire was prosperous. They have like street lights
Yeah.
at that time, like medieval Europe, and they have like street lights made of palm oil. The city was clean, and those are like European reports.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this because I'm biased.
Yeah.
It was like Europeans talking about the people they wanted to enslave, at least trade with in a, disloyal manner. The city was big, it was secure, it was safe, it was clean, it was illuminated. So you have this massive city. You try to.
Yeah, can we get it up? Podemos?
So you have this
Yes, Sergio.
this massive city, and this picture is actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
I hope that's the one that I'm saying.
The only one.
Oh yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So the thing is, written records is not very much common the way that we understand written languages in Africa.
Yeah.
So as most of the West Africa, not most of West Africa, but most of Africa, there is not like a written alphabet. Most languages and culture are oral, and that would develop other aspects of the society. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't documents.
Yeah.
You want to speak to Sergio?
Não, vai chegar o imagem?
Vou colocar.
So I want to ask for to wait for
Yeah, we'll wait for it. It's cool.
the image,
Yeah.
right? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, man. How are you? You enjoying yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I would do this every day. To be I
know you are.
I love talking about
I
myself.
know.
I
I did say, listen.
I love talking about
Not a lot
myself.
of work today. Just
Yeah.
let him.
Yeah.
Ele tá solto.
Tô soltinho,
let
soltinho,
him do
yeah.
what he has to do. And we'll
Oh my
just.
God.
Yeah, calma.
I am very calm.
Calma, calabresa.
Just
Calma,
not used
calabresa.
in this. Oh, here's.
All right.
Okay, so the quality is not the best, but you can see here that's an European guy. Those are European soldiers, and there is a parade, probably like a welcoming envoy to receive
Yeah.
the European visitors. But you can see here the city. That's like the projection of the city. So you have some kind of, I have no idea what it is, but you have here the city, and you can actually see the wall here, right?
So do you remember they said that the Great Wall of China can be seen from space?
Yes, probably it could too.
Yeah. So they should have seen that.
Yeah, it's. I don't remember. I have no idea when the Great Wall of China was built.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know if they were contemporary from each other.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
have
this
no
doesn't.
idea.
This doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It was
So
completely
that's
destroyed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. This leads me on to another point. So this was destroyed, and it's from Benin City, obviously.
Which is in
place-
Nigeria,
which
not
is
in Benin. though.
Nigeria. Yeah,
Yes.
I know. Yeah, sorry. It's good to point out, which is
Yes.
in Nigeria. And I remember hearing about this in that class, and I was like, "Yeah, that's so cool, man! I can't wait to tell everyone. Like, this is my own. I'm gonna say this in parties and stuff like that." And I remember I went to visit my godfather uncle in London, and he had something that I just couldn't believe is possible, because when we talked about in the Bhata class, when we talked about all the artifacts being stolen and stuff, there was a few interviews. You seen that? You remember that interview? It was like give back the Benin bronzes. When
Yes.
can you give it back? And
Yeah,
the guys
yeah.
are like umming and ahhing, like, well, we would love to,
Yeah.
but maybe in a way that we could loan it and
Like
still be in charge.
loaning stolen objects to the original
To the-
owners.
yeah,
It's like
to the
it's a
original-
wild concept.
That
man.
is
it's
crazy.
It's wild. It doesn't
The
make any sense.
audacity.
Like the in moral standpoint, even by Western moral standards, that's
Yeah.
fucked up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay. All right.
You can say whatever you want.
So this is a beautiful piece of art.
This-
Is it original?
This is an original
Damn.
Benin bronze
It's beautiful.
from, I'm going to say from Benin.
It's from Benin.
Yeah, it's from Benin.
From Benin City.
Yeah, from Benin City, Nigeria.
Nigeria.
My uncle, one of his good friends from like college, was working as a diplomat with some ambassador anyway. And long story short, it was given to my uncle as a gift because he helped them with a job while they were visiting London at the time. And he was like, well, yeah, I have this. But this is the important thing about this. And I just have to say that, you know, it's my family, and so technically that's mine. But this is the important thing. Not a lot of black people have these. Not a lot of Nigerians have these.
Nah.
They are locked away in museums.
European museums, and you can say white museums.
Yeah,
in general.
Yeah, you can say what you want.
Yeah.
You can say what you want.
Yeah, white museums, because
Yeah.
some of them are also in the if I recall correctly, in the Smithsonian Museum in the United States.
Okay.
That is a museum in New York too. I think have some of them, but mostly in the British Museum.
Yeah. So, Uncle Steve, we need to keep that in the family. You know? I need to bring that.
Yeah, and
I need to
actually,
bring that to you.
so the history of the Benin bronzes is quite sad actually, because as I told you, the Edo people didn't really care for the slave trade. You know, and I'm saying quoting because the name is bad.
Yeah.
The name sounds like it was a commerce that you did. Like, oh,
Yeah,
let me buy a
slave trade,
person. And so it was not a slave trade. It was a total destruction of cultures and cosmologies and ways of life, basically. So they didn't get too much involved in that, and so white people, namely the British, didn't have like a good excuse to invade them, because although they like crossed Africa the way that they wanted on the Berlin Conference, I think it was 1889. I don't remember exactly when it was. It was late 18th century.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't like just usually invade like empires that they didn't have a good excuse for. So they actually didn't have a good way to show the world like, oh, we're not like only killing them and stealing the stuff, we're like incorporating them into society.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that
civilizing
excuse.
them.
Yeah, we don't have that excuse, because the Edo kingdom was a very
just so advanced.
yeah, it was a beautiful thing, you know.
Yeah.
And what happened is that someone, if I recall correctly, the story is like someone attacked a British soldier,
Yeah.
and that escalated, and you know, the British Empire
British soldier
say
that shouldn't have been there in the first place.
yeah. So it was something like
hanging
that.
around trying to steal Benin bronzes.
Basically, the British kingdom like said that
Yeah.
the Benin kingdom did something, and the Benin kingdom said we didn't, but they say, "Psych, we're taking your shit." So basically, it was how it went, and those used to be on the Oba's palace, on the king's palace, on the leader's palace, and those are not pieces of art; those are documents, because a good portion of African cultures, pre-colonial African cultures, didn't have like a developed writing system that used as a tool. The writing systems were like ways to represent life.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the depictions of the king, and each one of those assets says something. So the Oba's palace would have like literally plaques made of bronze depicting historical things, things
Yeah.
that happened to them, to their people. So, for example, one of the more than one actually of the statuettes and the plaques are representing Portuguese soldiers, because when the Portuguese came, they brought some technology that they had. They exchanged the technology that the Edo people had, and that actually marked a period of time during them, in a way that they felt that they should represent that. So when you get there back then and you look at such a plaque, you will understand that that plaque represented
Plaque.
plaque.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. A plaque. That plaque would represent uh, a period of their history.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have a people who didn't develop writing, like they didn't reproduce those en masse. They just represented and put on the Alba's palace, so anyone who could go there and see their own history.
Yeah.
You know, the place to see the history is in Alba's palace. You don't take history home because you don't have another plaque. You know.
Yeah.
What happens when you take those? So British people invaded the Edo kingdom. They destroyed the Alba's palace and they looted everything possible that they could find, and they could like carry. Literally, there are like things that are important relics.
Yeah.
Like in soldiers' families' home until this day, right? On like the personal collection of looting of Nigeria, what would be called Nigeria.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, and they took them back. So that's literally taking all written history,
yeah.
of some
That's
people.
the historical documents.
Yes, the
That's
documents, the documentation.
those are the records.
Yeah, so
That's crazy.
from time to
Those
time,
are the
like from
records.
generation from generation, people like saw that as no important, and they mostly of the Edo people like don't actually understand fully the plaques. So it's similar to Brazil. Brazil burned all documents related to slavery, so I have no idea where I came from, like in Africa, right? Because the documents would say, so this enslaved African was taken in Angola, in which region, and was brought to Brazil, yada, 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 you know. We don't know because documentation was burned. So now, if you are an Edo people and want to see your own history, you have to fly to England, buy a ticket to the museum, and see your history.
In
And you
sunny England, in the sunny UK.
And if you are lucky, they can loan you back. You know, they can loan you back. So Britain earned like a shit ton of money out of looted items, not only from Africa, from India, from Southeast Asia, from North America, from the indigenous people of North America, you know. And every single year Nigeria sends an envoy from the embassy and say, please give them back to us. It's important for the Edo people. Say sorry, and British says no.
Yeah, well, we'll see, because yesterday I saw one of my friends sent me some news that the UK decided to give back some of Ghana's artifacts. Yeah,
like for real.
For real. So that's actually happening.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see how far Nigeria can get with some of their Benin bronzes, but at least we have some, and we'll see if we can get it to Brazil. I'll try my best. He has many children.
Yes,
but he's my godfather.
But I was about to say, that's a great news. That's some great news. A black family from Nigeria, although you're not from the Edo people, but I'm happy that at least a black African family have it. Yeah.
Well, we're from River State, including uncle and auntie and everyone. But bro. Wow, man. What an amazing guest you are. Thank you. What an amazing person you are.
Thank you.
Like I said, you're more than a friend. You're like a brother to me.
You're my brother. You know that.
Well, we know this. But what I was going to say is, for anyone who is still here listening with us, thank you. Of course. This is why Bhata is so important. The gems, the knowledge, the insight, and the passion to actually go out and learn about everything that you do. It just makes it so interesting, and I'm sure we could definitely go on for hours talking about this stuff. And this is why we have weekly classes. So,
Yes.
Wale, thank you. Can you please just let us know how we can get in touch with you, how we can maybe take part in Bhata and everything like that?
Okay, so we have our school's Instagram. It's at English Kuvata, which is Kubhata. So English Kubata, but we say Vata because that's a Kimbondo, right? So we have that. Our teachers, not our teachers, our school Instagram. I have my personal Instagram too.
Yeah.
But I usually don't get to people that I don't know. So
Can I have it?
yeah, you can have it. So you guys can reach us there. Sometimes we do some open classes. They're in Portuguese most of the time because we're reaching Portuguese Brazilian audiences. But maybe if you are interested in being part of one classes, just give me a shout out at our school's Instagram saying, "Oh, I came from the Brazilian podcast with Steve in your episode, and maybe we can try to put you on the more advanced class with Steven."
Yeah, it's true. You'll still be learning. You'll be there like, "Oh, God, I don't know what this means."
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want something, related to Africa or anything, I'm always glad to talk about Africa in many degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you, Steven, for having me too. It was a good
you,
experience. I hope you're happy with the result. I hope everybody had a good time.
Listen, COMMUNIDADE, I'll say on behalf of Wale, Wale is obviously a great friend of mine, but I'll say this, this guy puts his heart and soul into everything that he does. He's super passionate. He's a great guy. So we are very lucky to have someone like that being able to share with us. So I do appreciate the fact that he's here, and I mean it with the bottom of my heart.
Yeah. If you want to do it again, I'm down.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to do it again, I need to speak to the bank first because, you're an expensive guy.
He's not paying me anything. He's not paying me anything, I'm broke. He did this water, I paid for the water. He paid for my water.
Comunidade, again, muito obrigado for being here, to sharing our time. Remember to like, subscribe, share, comment. I expect to see some comments about this episode. What do you think about Wale? What other interesting African diaspora stuff could we maybe share in it? And also the fact that there are so many Brazilian words that are not Brazilian, and they're not Portuguese, and they're not just Facebooky and stuff that's westernized that everyone just sort of incorporates, home office and stuff like that. I think the fact that samba is originally from Angola, which is quite obvious, but stuff like that. So anyway, Comunidade, like, subscribe. Thanks for coming, and obrigado, até logo, and peace.
Yes.
Thank you, my guy.